God is dead, he remains dead, and we have killed him. This quote by philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche is both powerful and controversial, and has left the world believing his philosophical views were nihilistic in nature. In this documentary, we will take a deeper look into the debate on whether or not Nietzsche was a nihilist, and why it is important to prove that he in fact did not subscribe to nihilistic beliefs. But first, what is nihilism? Nihilism simply recognizes the meaningless of life and argues that we will never find a spiritual connection or a necessity for values and morals. It furthermore argues that we should live as the animals we are and seek no purpose. If you were a nihilist, you would believe that our very existence is futile. Our being is just a coincidence resulting from the universe's madness that just happened to create sentient beings capable of the realization of their own existence. It takes into account that eventually all of us, all of this, even the greatest achievements and the many mistakes we've made will be forgotten. Everything we have ever done and will do is ultimately meaningless, and eventually we will just be dust in the wind. And this brings us back to Nietzsche and the modern-day misconceptions that he was in fact a nihilist himself. Nietzsche, who was born in 1844, attended the College of Bonn in Germany, and successfully became a philosopher and teacher. Early on in his career, he became seriously ill, half-blind, and was practically always in pain, leading to a decade of isolation and creativity. During this time, he wrote many important works, including Thus Spoke Zarathustra, Ecce Homo, Beyond Good and Evil, and On the Genealogies of Morals. In January of 1889, Nietzsche collapsed in the streets of Turin. He lost all control of his mind and spent the next 11 years of his life in an asylum with complete mental darkness. Nevertheless, Nietzsche has impacted many generations and types of people, regardless of race, social, and economical backgrounds. Today and throughout history, Friedrich Nietzsche's work has also, of course, greatly influenced theologians, psychologists, philosophers, writers, and many others in their work to understand the motives behind Western religion, philosophy, and morality. Unfortunately, his writings were altered after his death, making his story a cautionary tale to many philosophers throughout time. This is due to the fact that after his death, Nietzsche's sister Elizabeth took over his estate, which included all of his writings. She then edited them to suit her own views, which were fascist and anti-Semitic, and published them under Nietzsche's name. Because of this, people began to see him as a Nazi. Although Nietzsche's influential ideas had a long-term effect on history, both his original writings and the manipulation of them have led to the modern misconception that Nietzsche was a nihilist. He was, however, quite the opposite, as seen through his dedication to education, philosophy, and the arts. He even once called art the highest task and the true metaphysical activity of this life. One of Nietzsche's most important books, Thus Spoke Zarathustra, tells the story of Zarathustra, but a new Zarathustra, the Iranian prophet who influenced Judeo-Christian beliefs and who, in Nietzsche's fictional version, was fit to preach the bringing down of the dualistic beliefs that he helped create. The book starts by introducing Zarathustra, who had been living in the mountains for 10 years. After he comes down, Zarathustra starts preaching the Overman, or, in German, the Übermensch. The Overman is an idea Nietzsche coined, and it described for him the perfect person. This person would rise above traditional beliefs and create their own beliefs without the need for traditional Judeo-Christian beliefs. Man is something to overcome. Man is a rope stretched between the animal and Overman, a rope over an abyss. This quote from Thus Spoke Zarathustra demonstrates that Nietzsche didn't see humanity as being complete. Rather, he thought of people being on a path walking towards the Overman. Nietzsche put down an example for this, saying that we are like a tightrope walker over an abyss. We are balancing on the path from animal to Overman. But how does this relate to people thinking that he is a nihilist? On the path to becoming the Overman, nihilism is an inevitable part of the journey. Just because it is a part of the path, that does not mean he believed in nihilistic views. He did, however, believe that humanity would lose traditional beliefs and transition to a nihilistic ideology. Because of this new belief in nothing, it would leave people distraught. So as a solution, he thought up the idea of the Overman, one who is like a nihilist in the sense that there is no correct meaning to life. However, contrasted from nihilism, they develop a meaning without using traditional beliefs. This is often confused with nihilism. They don't believe in anything. But the key difference is that they don't throw away the idea of giving life meaning. Instead of having a set meaning to life, whether that be to get into a place after death or something else, they create their own meaning. So overall, nihilism is often confused with the idea of Overman because nihilists both don't believe in an objective meaning to life, but they do have a meaning to life. Because Nietzsche used the term nihilism and introduced the idea that nihilism is one of the most important things to humanity, many became confused and figured he was talking about how nihilism is the end goal, because the Overman is so similar to a nihilist. To put it into perspective, Nietzsche described nihilism as part of the path, similarly to how being a child is part of growing up. Another one of Nietzsche's writings, The Parable of the Madman, is a short story talking about the death of God. Thus another example of why many believe Nietzsche to be a nihilist. To summarize, it tells of a madman who cries out to a town of atheists, yelling, "God is dead, God remains dead, and we have killed him." In this story, Nietzsche claims that the people committed the heinous crime of killing God, yet they have no idea how they have done this. There is no physical act, so how could this be possible? This is because when he talks about the murder, he's speaking in a metaphorical sense, or in other words, Nietzsche is saying that the belief in the Judeo-Christian tradition as a whole is dying out.
He wanted us to understand that there was no transcendent source of values, and that we had to determine our own.
This quote by Les Miller, an associate professor of philosophy at Colorado Mesa University, substantiates that Nietzsche was not a nihilist. In fact, Miller points out that Nietzsche believed above all else that we need to create our own values and not be influenced by something or someone telling us what our values should be. Nietzsche described the Judeo-Christian tradition as devious. However, according to Miller, his reasons for feeling this negativity comes from the life he was living.
The way he describes it comes from his own affinity for certain virtues, strength, nobility, heroism, fortitude, sorts of things he actually didn't really have in life, being so sickly. So he saw Christianity as turning those virtues into vices, and turning the vices of meekness and so on into virtues.
It does not mean Nietzsche's claiming that Christianity wasn't true. He just did not agree with the values and so described it as devious and the opposite of what Roman paganism believed. This ultimately would leave the world believing he was a nihilist, but in reality, he simply wanted the people to establish their values independently without influence from the Judeo-Christian beliefs that he found to be devious. The debate over whether or not Nietzsche was a nihilist is an important one, because nihilism is often viewed with a negative connotation. Nietzsche was not against living life with a sense of purpose, values, or morals, nor did he live a life that was void of goals and aspirations. In fact, one example showing that Nietzsche advocated for furthering one's potential was his vote to allow women to attend Bonn University in Germany. He was one of the 4 men to vote in favor, and while it ultimately failed, Nietzsche was hopeful. Looking back again at what Nietzsche called the Overman, or the perfect person, we see that his preaching of this higher human was his way of encouraging a strong will to do better and to have the strength to create our own purpose free from the influence of religion. Creating our own meaning, of course, would be against nihilistic beliefs. A nihilist would reject the idea of shaping their own meaning, even arguing that we shouldn't have a meaning at all. Taking us full circle to why his controversial statement, "God is dead, he remains dead, and we have killed him," is merely Nietzsche stating that we have lost dedication to religious ideologies. He believed that losing this dedication to religion was losing the necessary element needed to create our own values, beliefs, morals, and direction. Nietzsche's creations of the Overman sought to open the people's eyes to the possibility of wanting more. In summary, while Nietzsche had many ideas that didn't lean far off the path of nihilism, such as a loss of faith in the traditional religious values, he was not in fact a nihilist. His dedication to education, the arts, philosophy, as well as his writings and creation of the Overman, are proof that Nietzsche did not subscribe to nihilism and was a supporter of living life to its fullest potential. However, a potential that we create ourselves, free from religious influence.